Welcome to another series of interactive drafting with Trump. The Shaman is one of those classes which can get a lot of value with its hero ability. Only the Paladin also has a hero ability which puts something on the board. The totems are all kinds of useful, and in Arena there's a lot of very strong Shaman cards. The cards to look out for are Fire Elemental, Hex, Lightning Storm, and Stormforged Axe. And Flame Tongue Totem is really strong too, and Feral Spirit. So a lot of, and there's a lot of good cards also, like Rockbiter, Lightning Bolt, Fork Lightning, Unbound Elemental. So it's got a lot of good cards. And that's kind of the Shaman's thing, a very solid class. When Nax first came out, I wasn't sure how much I would like the Deathlord in Arena, but now I'm fairly convinced that it is quite bad. There are a few cards I would take it over, but not many at this point. The Violet Teacher is a nice strong 4-mana 3/5, and considering that the Shaman has several 1-mana spells, is going to be the pick here. The Questing Adventure is slightly better in Shaman since there are 1-mana spells, but it's less reliable than the Violet Teacher. This is one of those packs where when you see a certain card, you almost always pick it. That card is not Frostshock, which doesn't do enough. And that card is not Ironbeak Owl, which is significantly less good in Arena, I would say, than Constructed, because there's less vital things to silence off. And I actually don't value the Owl very highly. That card is Fire Elemental. If you picked any of the other two cards, you have much to learn. We've got some mediocre cards here. Grubashi Berserker tends to be too slow to go off. Stormwind Knight is on the good side of mediocre, I guess. It's like very, very slightly above average. Dread Corsair is a 4-mana 3/3 currently, even if I draft an Axe later, which I'm going to be picking very highly. The Dread Corsair is still just a 2-mana 3/3 at best. Pretty easy pick here. Unstable Ghoul is okay, though it's slightly worse than Paladin and Shaman, where you friendly fire your own guys. Chillwind Yeti is extremely strong. 4-mana 4/5 is at the upper tier level of stats. Reincarnate is not useful in Arena because you usually can't pull off anything cool with it. Three Shaman cards, but the clear favorite here is Hex. Between Wind Fury and Wind Speaker, actually, it's not obvious which one is better. They're different for different decks. I happen to dislike both of them. Usually I would pick Wind Speaker a bit higher than Wind Fury, but both of these are actually not great cards. Oftentimes the Wind Speaker will just be played as a 4-mana 3/3 because you have nothing to put it on. And when you can put it on something, it just generally means like the battle cry is deal some amount of damage. Now granted, sometimes you finish with these and it's all great and good, but I don't find these Wind Fury giving cards to be that great. Another set of 3 Shaman cards, but one clear choice here. Totemic Might is awful. It doesn't justify the use of the card. Might as well say lose 1 card. Wind Fury is here again, but Stormforged Axe is one of the best 2-drop plays you can do. It's arguably the best weapon in the early game, alongside Fire War Axe. Has the pros of managing to kill 3 guys sometimes. You play this against their turn 2, 3/2, and you're pretty far ahead. Thrallmar Farseer is a poor stat card. It is a 3 mana 2/3 the turn you play it. Most of the cards with Wind Fury suffer this same downfall where the stats of you like double the attack. It's actually a 3 mana 4/3, but because your guy needs to stay in place one turn and the opponent can attack into it and only take 2 damage, most of the cards with Wind Fury turn out to not be very good. The Jungle Panther is a solid 3 mana 4/2 and will be the pick here. The Leper Gnome, it's very rare to draft a deck so aggressive that you can take advantage of that death rattle. And a 1 mana 2/1 simply gets killed for free by many of the classes, so tend to stay away from drafting 1 mana or 1 health cards, which are typically 1 mana. River Crocolisk is a reasonable 2 mana card. Given that I have 1 2-drop so far, I'm inclined to pick it. Flesh-Eating Ghoul is one of those cards that's better when you have an aggressive deck. Currently looks like I don't have an aggressive deck. It's also slightly better in Paladin and Shaman because your totems can get eaten by the ghoul and your guys for the Paladin. It's slightly less good in Shaman than Paladin because your totems usually can't attack. So I'm not going to pick the ghoul here as I need more 2s. Totemic Might is awful. Thrallmar Farseer, still bad. Stormwind Knight is better than the Thrallmar Farseer, but better than both is Harvest Golem, which is a very solid 3-drop. In fact, when I think of solid 3-drops, I think of Harvest Golem. Similar to when I think of solid 4-drops, I think of Chillwind Yeti. It's just very difficult to ever come out ahead on turn 3 when your opponent plays a Harvest Golem. Nubian Egg is not a terrible card when you have the cards to support it and buff it, or taunt it, or etc. But currently I have no supporting cards, so I wouldn't hold out hope of using the egg. So it's between Sunfury Protector, which is like River Crocolisk with a slight upside, and Crazed Alchemist, which is neat and scientific, but I'm going to choose to have the 1 extra health instead. And I would also choose River Crocolisk over Crazed Alchemist, just because that 1 extra health does come into play a few times. Not that you can pick between the two, because this is the rare slot. Spectral Knight is a reasonable card. Not nearly as good in Arena as it is in Constructed. Simply a 5 mana 4/6, which there's not quite as many spells being flung around that target minions in Arena. You'll have to take my word for that, even though it sounds wrong. Stormwind Champion is really strong in Shaman. You play a bunch of totems, and then you use the Stormwind Champion and get a lot of value. And hey, another Totemic Might. Blah. So far these picks have been pretty easy, and the easiness continues. The Wisp is awful. It's not worth 1 card to just play a 1/1. Ancestral Healing, it's not worth a card just to give something full health and taunt. And Silver Moon Guardian is not fabulous, but it is at least it's a card. Ancient Brewmaster is a fine 4 mana 5/4, and the Battle Cry, I could see some use in this deck, but better is going to be the Lightning Bolt. Dread Corsair has it suffers the same problem that at its best it's a 2 mana 3/3 in the Shaman deck. Lightning Bolt is a fine, efficient removal. This pick probably has the closest pick so far. So the Harvest Golem I've explained is an extremely solid card. It comes out with 4 health of stats and somewhere between 2 and 4 attack depending on how you want to do the accounting. The Magma Rager is terrible, since 1 health minions tend to be terrible, especially when they cost 3 mana. The Shattered Sun Cleric is actually worth contending with the Harvest Golem here, because the Shaman always has the ability to make a guy on turn 2, which you can buff on turn 3 with the Shattered Sun Cleric. Also, I have the River Crocolisk and the Sun Fury Protector, both of which get benefited by getting Shattered Sun, because then they can trade with the 3/2 and then still survive. This is a really close call. If I didn't have a Harvest Golem already, I would choose the Harvest Golem. But having diversity of cards is nice on turn 3, since sometimes you want to play the Harvest Golem and sometimes you want to play the Shattered Sun Cleric. I'm going to choose the Shattered Sun Cleric, mostly because I have 2 2/3s already, which is kind of rare, and I have the totems. Close enough, though. This pick is kind of difficult also. Only a little bit, though. So, you've got Lightning Bolt, which is a very solid removal card, and that's mainly being put up against the Cult Master as to which one is better. 4 mana 4/2, and if you saw my recent Paladin arena, the Cult Master there got some incredible value. The Shaman gets slightly less value than the Paladin, but those two are the classes where you want to get the Cult Master. Cult Master, good with the Taunt Totem, and it's good with the 1/1 Searing Totem. Acolyte of Pain is just not as good as the other two cards. So I look at my early game, and I've already got 4 cards which deal with early game cards, and in a Shaman, I'm really only looking for somewhere like 6 or 7. So I'm going to choose the Cult Master, gets me a better late game advantage. Easy pick here. Flame Tongue Totem is an excellent card. Good in the mid to late stage of the game. It's like the Battle Cries, deal 4 damage, and sometimes you can do creative accounting to have the Battle Cry be deal 8 damage if you kill off the guys adjacent to the Flame Tongue Totem and your further guys slide in. It's what makes the Shaman ability of toteming so good. Mad Scientist is a 2-mana 2/2, and that's no good. And oh my gosh, is that like the 4th or 5th Totemic Might? To me, this pick is easy, though I feel like most people will pick this card incorrectly in my book. The Zombie Chow is a really good card to start off with. You get incredible tempo, and it trades with their card, and then you just keep going from there. 1 mana for a 2/3 is really strong, and I always play this game, and certainly this deck is intended to be played in the way of board control, which the Zombie Chow does splendidly. The Tauren Warrior is terrible, 3 mana for a 2/3. Oh, look at the Zombie Chow compared to the Tauren Warrior. They're the same stats, but Zombie Chow costs 2 mana less. The Spellbreaker is a good card, and I don't have any silence yet, but I'm going to pick the Zombie Chow over the Spellbreaker. I do have enough 4s, and actually one of the reasons why I almost considered choosing the Spellbreaker is because I seem to have enough early game, but Zombie Chow just too good to pass up. This a bit tricky. So the Demolisher is one of those cards which is really good if the opponent does not have 4 damage on the board, but if they do, then it's a very bad card because of the stats. The Deathlord is really bad, and the Wailing Soul is a 4 mana 3/5 with what I would qualify as a serious drawback in a Shaman deck, because you silence all your totems and there's no negative card text here, although it does get rid of the random Humility and the random Peacekeeper and the random freezes sometimes. And the stats are fine. So the question is, do I have enough early game to secure Demolisher play? I've got Chow Axe, Crocolisk, Sun Fury Protector, and Lightning Bolt. I think in the early game I should have control of the board, enough that the Demolisher might be good enough. And I think I have enough 4-drops. Although I also have enough 3-drops. This is a really tough one. I mean, I feel like I would If I wasn't Shaman, I would pick the Wailing Soul. Seems really bad with all the totems, though. Hey, it's Totemic Might again. We won't pick that card. Rudy Doctor is a bad 1 mana 2/1. Fairy Dragon is the only legitimate pick here. Cold Light Seer, 3 mana 2/3, really bad stats. Pint-Sized Summoner, 2 mana 2/2, bad stats, and I wouldn't pick it if not for Young Priestess, which is a 1 mana 2/1, and it does have that very useful hero ability, very useful card ability, but I just don't think it's good enough to justify it over something with 2 health, and the ability on this card isn't terrible. Ramp up to a 4-drop. Also, giving another random friendly minion plus 1 health is slightly worse in Shaman, because it's usually a totem. It's sometimes a totem. The pick here, well, the cards here are Gurubashi Berserker, which is too slow, 5 mana 2/7. Takes too long to get going. Ventrico Mercenary is very strong on the, it's the direct opposite to a Gurubashi Berserker. It's really fast to get going, but then it slows you down afterwards. The Unbound Elemental is one of those cards which is generally good in Shaman, just because a 3 mana 2/4 is fine, and any overloads you have are gravy on top of the mashed potatoes. But Lightning Bolt, Stormforged Axe, I mean, that's actually good enough as is. And I would pick the Unbound Elemental if not for my severe lack of an endgame. And Ventrico Mercenary is going to be my 3rd card, which is 5 and over, and I usually like to have quite a few of those, like, let's say, more than 6 of them. So Ventrico. Same reasoning as the last pick, the Stranglethorn Tiger is really good. It's a good mid/late game minion, which will generally take down 1 or 2 cards. Goldshire Footman does not justify a slot in the card. It doesn't justify using it as a card. In a way similar to Totemic Might, it doesn't have enough of an impact on the board. Same with the Argent Squire, especially in a class that can't deal 1 damage. Three good Shaman cards here. Even though I already have a Stormforged Axe, having 2 Stormforged Axe is perfectly fine, and I'm very happy to see another one. Rockbiter Weapon is a solid card, and so is Lightning Bolt, but those cards only kill 1 guy, whereas the Stormforged Axe can help in killing 3 guys, and I like that. Oh man, 3 really good cards again. Not that tough actually, now that I think about it. Count up the early game cards you have in the deck already. Lightning Bolt, Zombie Chow, 2 Stormforged Axe, Fairy Dragon, Pint-Sized Summoner, River Crocless, Sun Fury Protector. The early game is already well covered, so instead of picking the excellent early game Zombie Chow or the excellent answer to early game minions, the Lightning Bolt, you pick the Flame Tongue Totem, which will synergize well with your early game minions and is more of a mid-late game card. Easy pick here, and a good pick. Stranglethorn Tiger is a very solid 5 mana 5/5 where you get to dictate where your first attack goes. Core Hound is 2 mana more than Tiger and is arguably worse than the Tiger, since you don't get to dictate where the first attack goes, and it still only has 5 health. Funny how you compare the cards side by side, and you're like, huh, this card which is 2 mana less might actually be better. And Elven Archer doesn't do enough in the deck. I don't like a 2 mana 1/4 in a deck that cannot deal 1 damage, since then it can't trade with the 3/2s. So Nerubar Weblord no good. Stormpike Commando is on the weak side of cards. It just has really bad stats, and the battle cry is useful, but it's just not that good. There is a problem with having too many Flame Tongue Totems, which is sometimes you have a hand of like 2 Flame Tongue Totem and you're behind on the board, and it's no good. That said though, I'm still going to pick the Flame Tongue Totem here and just use the Flame Tongue more liberally. The Flame Tongue Totem is just so good that, I mean, I actually don't like picking 3 of them. But it's better than the Commando. You kind of weigh it. It's close. It's... Do I call this close? I'm not sure. Stormpike Commando costs too much. Murloc Tidehunter, we have too much early game, and it's not a very good early game card. Although with 3 Flame Tongue Totems, it's actually a little bit better. It just tends to be bad against classes that can deal 1 damage because you play your 2-drop, they Fire Blast or Dagger it, and then you have only a 1/1 left. Raging Worgen is not very strong, even though sometimes you win the games with it, especially a Flame Tongue. That tends to be against weaker players who don't play around the necessity to not play anything that has less than 3 attack. Venture Co. Mercenary is a really, really good card here, and will be the pick. 5 mana, 7/6. Wow, such value. Hey, another Venture Co. Mercenary, and I would pick this card fearlessly, even though I have 2 already, if not for the better card in here. And no, it's not Corehound, it's Boulder Fist Ogre, which, is actually not necessarily strictly better than the Venture Co. Mercenary. In fact, I actually like the Venture Co. Mercenary more in general, but it's nice to not have 3 Venture Co. Mercenaries, since you can't play them together, and the Ogre is just a nice solid guy. I consider this pick a little bit difficult. So Dread Corsair is no good, even though I have 2 Stormforged Axe. Silverhand Knight is a nice value card, and gets 6/6 of stats for 5. But here's the thing, on the curve, I look at it, and I've already got 2 Tigers and 2 Venture Co. Mercenaries, so the 5 slot is well taken care of. And on top of that, I'm not even sure it's just better than the Stormwind Champion, even if I didn't already have this many 5s. The Stormwind Champion is really strong in a Shaman deck. You put all the totems out, and this card is way better than Bloodlust since the attack value stays. And an easy pick to round the deck out. Ancient Mage is no good. It's 4 mana, 2/5, and there's only 1 spell, I believe, that deals spell damage in the deck. Lightning Bolt. Yep, that would be it. Azure Drake is a 5 mana, 4/4, and though the spell damage is rather irrelevant, even if it didn't have that text, it would be an excellent card, since draw a card can be thought of as something that costs around 1.5 mana, so you're paying like 3.5 mana for a 4/4, and that's good. Willing Soul, meh. Alright, and we've got a very sturdy deck here. And I've tended to find that Shaman decks tend to be one of the decks that turn out to be more sturdy, just because there are so many good class cards. And we picked up a few of them. 2 Stormforged Axe, 3 Flame Tongue Totem. Actually, let's just count up all the class cards. Lightning Bolt, 2 Stormforged Axe, 3 Flame Tongue Totem, Hex, Fire Elemental. Okay, so not that many class cards, 8 good ones. And then the rest of this stuff is filled up with solid minions. I've got a strong early game. The Flame Tongue Totems are not actual early game cards, but what are early game are Lightning Bolt, Zombie Chow, 2 Stormforged, Fairy Dragon, Pint-Sized, River Croc, Sun Fury for 8 cards that are 2-drops, and that's on the high end of what I like, but that's acceptable. In the late game, I've got 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9 late game cards, and I like that. And they are very good late game cards. And in the middle, I've got just a nice even set of 3s, 4s, and 5s. This is a mana curve which I would take all the time if I were given the choice. Looks really strong. It's sturdy. Of course, a deck like this could always be better with additional cards which are good, such as more fire elementals and more hexes. But hey, I picked up the 2 Stormforged Axes, very happy about that. And 1 more Flame Tongue Tome than I would like, but hey, that's still good too. And the neutrals are all strong, especially the late game. So I have high hopes for this deck. I'm not sure if I want to guess 12, just because it might not be quite that good. But it does seem very solid to me. I'm going to guess the conservative 10 wins. But let it be known that I have high hopes that this can go 12. I mean, it's hard to imagine this going badly because of all the early game I've got. Like, I would just lose only to a stronger deck or with an extremely poor draw. And, you know, like, even in a slightly stronger deck, if I get matched up against it with some good play and some Flame Tongue Totem counting, perhaps I can even take those down. So yeah, I guess 10 wins. Kind of want to guess 12, but I'm going to guess 10.